Hey folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching here on the Steelers Now YouTube channel. We've had so much growth and the season hasn't even started yet. And thank you all for making this new morning show such a great success. It's been awesome getting in here and talking to you guys every morning today. Today I want to respond to a question we got from a member of the audience, and that is Tom Jackson, who commented yesterday, why do they have 53-man roster but only allowed to dress 46? This is the perfect morning rush question, right? It's an arcane piece of rules that I can explain in probably too much detail. So yesterday, the Steelers made their cut from 91 to 53 players. 53 is an arbitrary number. It's in the CBA. I don't know why the Players Union and the league agreed to that. But the part about how many that get to dress on game day is something that I can certainly explain. And it's actually more than 56 now. Every game day, most teams can dress. Every team can dress at least 47 players. As long as 8 of those players are offensive linemen, you can dress 48 players. And if one of those players is the emergency quarterback, you can dress 49 players. So 49 of the 53 are on the sideline wearing a uniform and are able to play in a game. Now, that third quarterback can only play in emergencies if the first and second quarterbacks are either injured, ill, or ejected. And that's why I had some people in the comments saying like, oh, they should keep John Rhys Plumlee instead of Kyle Allen because he could return kicks and he can play on special teams. He can't, though, because if he's dressing as the third quarterback, then he can't play on anywhere other than as a quarterback, and only if the first 2 quarterbacks are injured, ill, or ejected. And so if he's going to play on special teams, at that point, then he's taking, not only is he taking a roster spot away from another player, he's taking a roster spot away from the team in general. So if you're going to use John Rhys Plumlee as your third quarterback and as a kickoff returner and as someone who covers kicks and maybe an emergency wide receiver and whatever, then you're only going to get 48 players instead of 49 players on game day. That's why Plumlee didn't make the team. Kyle Allen's going to be the third quarterback. Plumlee's going to be on the practice squad. I expect him to be anyway, assuming he clears waivers today. And so the reason, though, that there are those 4 slots still where those players don't dress for the game, so players 51, 2, and 3, 4 players, where they don't dress even though they're on the 53-man roster, is because football does not have a short-term injured reserve where you can put a player who is only going to miss a small number of games off the roster. So if you played with all 53 and a player was injured, you would either have to play a man short of your opponent, or you would have to put that player on injured reserve and they would have to miss at least 4 weeks, and you only get 8 guys that you can return from injured reserves over the course of the season. So the 9th guy that gets hurt, he's done for the year. And so the reason you have those 4 spots is so that each team can deal with injuries, minor injuries, on an even playing field. Let's say, okay, Roman Wilson is on the 53-man roster. I think Roman Wilson is probably going to be ready for week 1. Maybe. Let's say it's 50-50, okay? But he's certainly going to be ready by week 2. Like, I don't see any way that he's going to miss more than 1 week unless he has some kind of unexpected setback. If the Steelers had to play week 1 without Roman Wilson, they are still going to have 49 guys available to them, and there'll be 3 healthy scratches. And the Atlanta Falcons will be playing with 49 guys. If all 53 dressed and Roman Wilson didn't play, the Steelers would be playing 52 against an opponent with 53. So now the Steelers, in order to be on even footing with their opponent, and look, those extra bodies mean a lot. There was a question yesterday, we'll tie 2 in here if I can find it quickly, about long snappers and why teams, here, it's from Randy Tobias. I can explain why a roster spot is dedicated to someone who only does one thing for a very limited snap. The long snapper is really a skill that couldn't be taught to someone who plays another position. So, it's you have a long snapper. You could have even more extremely specialized people on your roster if you went to 53 instead of 49 that are playing. And then if you didn't have one of those, so, it would go on. Everybody's going to have these 3 extra specialists to do whatever they decide. But then if you don't have one of those and your opponent does, then you're in trouble, right? So you're going to have to put Roman Wilson on injured reserve, and then you're going to have to call up another player. So Roman Wilson, instead of missing 1 game with this injury, is going to miss 4 because you couldn't afford to play a game a man short. That's basically why it's to absorb short-term injuries. I actually think this is an area where football kind of has it wrong. I think teams should have the ability to put players on the injured reserve more flexibly than they do. I think it would create a better product overall. And yeah, I think we could see a day where you end up with all 53 players dressed. But in order for that to happen, you have to have a way to preserve the roster spot for a player who's injured for a short term. We had that during COVID. You could go in and out for 1 week, and I thought it worked fine. I don't know why I haven't gone back to it. The one area is teams will definitely need to save more salary cap space for moves throughout the season because guys on IR still count against the salary cap. And in terms of why teams don't try to save a roster spot with a long snapper, there are very few guys that could do it. The problem is that the special teams are practicing at the same time everybody else is practicing. So the Steelers will have the offense on one field, the defense on the second field, and the specialists off to the side. So either your kicker and your punter have to practice without their long snapper, or your long snapper doesn't get to practice whatever his other role is very often. It's difficult to work in practice, very similarly to why very few hockey players play on both the top power play and top penalty kill because they're practicing against one another all day, and it's impossible to do both. I think that's just a function of practice and that those specialists, they need a lot of reps. It's not like something that you can just, I know how to long snap, and I go over there and do it. If the Steelers and Falcons traded long snappers 12 hours before the opener, I'm sure it would be a disaster because it's not just about their ability, it's about the coordination of the operation, guys being in time, minute details, things like that require a ton of reps. Christian Kuntz probably takes 50,000 long snaps a year. There's isn't time. Christian Kuntz was a college linebacker. In fact, he played outside linebacker for the Steelers in a preseason game the first year they got him. He could have done it. It takes too much time and too much practice time to perfect long snapping or try to come close to perfecting long snapping in the kicking operations to allow a player to be more than that. I actually talked to Christian about that a couple of years ago. I said, would you ever want to go back to playing linebacker? And he said, no, I don't think I could do that. And so I don't want to say it's impossible. Maybe you could find a guy who's just a freak athlete, is really good at long snapping, and he doesn't need that much practice to go be a freak athlete in some other way. But I think for the most part, that's why teams are pretty comfortable using a roster spot on a long snapper. You remember what happened to the Cincinnati Bengals when their long snapper got hurt in that 2022 opener. The Steelers had one. Remember James Harrison snapped the ball over the punter's head, or that operation is too important to the whole team to try to be chintzy with it. And I think you don't see very many teams do that for a reason. Hope that explained the roster rules, why there are 53 guys on the roster, but not all of them dress, and why one of them is always going to be a long snapper. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We got one more practice this week on the South Side today. I'll be back with more with Zachary Smith on Steelers Afternoon Drive a little bit later, and hopefully on time today, as long as the Steelers don't decide to make a whole bunch more news after 4 o'clock. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening on another platform. Thank you so much. We appreciate each and every not each and every, almost all of our audience. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time.